Good morning, Breakfast with Bacon fans. I'm Dr. Christine Bacon, and I am here today with someone who you have seen on my show. Oh, let me say that. You've heard on my Breakfast with Bacon show before. John Horvat II, you've been on Breakfast with Bacon, I think 3 times, maybe more.
I think it's about that. Yeah, it should be about that time. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the first time that John is giving me and my viewers now instead of listeners the pleasure of seeing your face as we talk. So I kind of like this a lot.
Right, right. Video's so much more expressive than just the voice. I think it's better.
It really is. And you know what? I just took off my glasses, but I got to put them back on because I want to tell everybody who is John Horvat II. I got to make sure to put that out there and why I have you on. And this is real. This explains it easily. John is a scholar, a researcher, an educator, an international speaker. He is author of a book which was fantastic, Return to Order. Get your hands on it. His writings have appeared worldwide, including in the Wall Street Journal, the Christian Post, American Thinker, The Blaze, Crisis, Fox News, the Washington Times, as well as other publications. He gives more than 150 radio and TV interviews annually. It's almost like you do more than me. Gracious, how do you do that? Don't answer. Radio, writing, whatever. And so I'm not going to read your whole bio here, but for 2 decades, and this is why I love having you on, John has been researching and writing about what's gone wrong with American culture and economy. And this is what really led to your book, Return to Order. So, but you are the vice president and a member of the board of directors for the American Society for the Defense of Tradition, Family, and Property. There's so much more here, but I don't want to read the rest because I think my viewers are already going, wow, this guy is pretty in the know, on the ball. So I'm going to start again with saying thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show. Your insights are just, I mean, I love getting your daily emails. They really keep me awake of what's going on. But you always point us back to God. I like that.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I think you have to, and I think that's one of the things is so missing a lot of times. You know, from the news perspectives, it's just, well, it's only us. We're the only ones that are involved, and that can get pretty depressing.
Yeah. Why do you think we're missing from the news? Why do you think they don't broadcast?
Oh, you mean as far as God is concerned? Yeah. I mean, I think we live in a very secular culture, a culture that has been taught to just pretty much leave God on the side and make it a personal matter for each person.
Right.
And that's not the way it is. I mean, God does intervene in our own personal lives and in our national lives, our social lives, in the lives of history. So, I mean, we need to consider that. And I try to put that in my writings and what I do.
Yeah, well, I had Jesse Romero on yesterday, and he was saying the 4 things that Satan has to get a grip on to kind of influence culture is media, which is one of them, the education system. I can't remember. Sorry, Jesse, what all for, but you just touched on it. So I brought you on today because I do get daily emails from you and from the TFP. And what I titled today's show was Rise and Parallels of Vandalism, Satanism, and More. Because I know you and I know me, and I want to get as much out of you in terms of the richness of the research the Lord has allowed you to go to. There was an article you sent me that talked about the role of witchcraft and the occult in violent protests. So that's pretty timely. So I'm going to just start with, what is the role? I mean, we're looking at BLM, we're looking at all these protests. Is witchcraft and the occult involved in that, and how so?
Well, I mean, it's not something, when you think in terms of witchcraft and being involved, you think of a cult, and it's not as a cult anymore. I mean, it's out in the open. You have people who are witches who get involved, who teach people how to do witchcraft. You have TikTok, I think, TikTok hashtags where they teach people how to hex police officers, even police officers by name. And spells to protect protesters and to keep them safe, so to speak, from when they do their violence. So I mean, it is becoming mainstream. It's entering into the mainstream, and we see that a lot through all sorts of infiltrations inside the culture. So and the recent protests and riots. it just came to fore, and I wrote a piece about that because I said, well, this is something we're mixing politics and the occult, and that I think is a milestone. That's something that it's going farther than it normally does, and so I wanted to bring that out.
Because it's been public now. It used to be hidden. And I think we had
Mm-hmm.
our first public black mass in Oklahoma,
Oklahoma
right?
City, yes, yes.
And that was what, 5 years ago? Recent?
Yeah, you're right, exactly. In fact, I was there at the protest. And it was just there were a lot of Catholics and others who were there to protest. It was well, far more than actually went to the event. But it is significant that this kind of thing is happening in America. You know, this horrible black masses and things of this sort. But I think it has an effect because it calls forth the devil for the help to help those who want to get involved.
I think your organization, I think the TFP is the one that told us about a black mass in my state here in Norfolk, Virginia, which is just down the street. The university I teach at is in Norfolk. I'm in Virginia Beach. It's, 7
Yes, 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 yes.
And because of that, we went out and we were able to protest. Now, I wasn't able to be outside the building that particular day, but I was on my knees here in my house, just doing the best I could. And my husband was as well, praying rosaries. And I had announced it on my radio show because of what you guys told us. And
right, and I think it is very important that we do have a public presence out there. If they are being public about it, we also need to be public about it. And we need to be out there and to say, no, we don't accept this. Because, as much as people like to say that protests give publicity to bad events, they also give bad publicity, and nobody likes bad publicity. They want to avoid it. And when we do protest things, like, for example, drag queen story hours, we've done a lot of those types of protests, and we notice that once you start doing that, they try to hide it. They try to make it less, they try to find ways around it. They don't make it public. They don't do all sorts of things. And so you do put a stop to their activity. You do hinder their activity. Whereas if you didn't protest, they would simply go ahead and it would be everywhere at all times and all places.
Did you happen to see that recent video that was, people would get out, but then Facebook police, of course, locked it up with all those doctors in DC who were talking about using hydroxychloroquine, and they had 20 different doctors saying, and then one of them was a black female who they went and found in her personal webpage. She talked about witchcraft, and they were like, oh my gosh, this lady's so ridiculous and so radical, and look, she's on Trump's team. And they negated the other 19 people, doctors that were there.
Right.
Do you know what video I'm talking about? Do you know which doctor I'm talking about?
Definitely, I've seen the video. I've seen the doctor. Yeah. But I didn't know about the Facebook, doxing. Basically what they did.
Oh yeah, they deleted that thing quickly, and then it even made mainstream TV because they were like, I think something like 1 million people had seen the video before they doxed it. And so the mainstream had to come up with some story. Oh, they were spreading false information, and look at this crazy doctor. She's into witchcraft. And I sat there, John, and I thought, witchcraft is real. Just because the average Joe coming into my house or my place of employment has no idea doesn't mean it's not happening. Just like the 10 Commandments and the Baphomet statue in Arkansas. Say that again?
In Arkansas, the state capital in Arkansas.
Yeah.
They tried to put it there, yes.
Yeah. Have they succeeded? Is the Baphomet
statue?
No,
they haven't, actually. It's There's actually a state senator there who's done a lot of very good work keeping it out, but they're very insistent. They're not stopping. They're simply going ahead with it.
Before I ask you more about the role of this in violent protest, let me ask you, how did you start studying witchcraft and the occult, or was that kind of organic with all the other research you've been doing with the culture, and kind of how'd you get to where you are today?
Well, I mean, it is, as you say, I think it's sort of organic because when you study evil and evil happening in places, you'll eventually get to the devil. I mean, that's where the source is. So if you start studying, people involved, philosophies, bad philosophies. You just go deeper and deeper and deeper. You will get into the occult, different occultist philosophies, different occultist religions. The devil's right in the middle of it. So this is something that's just I didn't expect to appear so openly, but it's there. It's out there in the public. It's on Amazon. I mean, Amazon has books about this. I think one's called Witchcraft Activism: A Toolkit for Magic Resistance, which includes spells for social justice, civil rights, environment, and more. So I mean, these are the kind of things that are out there, and they're we have to confront them. It's not just a secular political party that's out there just calling for certain socialist things. It's the mixture, and it comes together, and it comes together naturally.
And we shouldn't just be passive observers, is what you're saying too. It's like, this is out there. We need, as the body of Christ, we need to get our backsides out there and fight this. Or we are, you didn't say this, but I'm saying it, cowards. Or I think most people are not cowards. Some are, but or we're just completely oblivious. We want to live our own little lives. And I think COVID has helped a lot to wake people up and go, there's something bigger going on than you realize, and we need to start doing our research. Would you agree?
Yes, definitely. We need to take it seriously because they take it seriously. The other side takes it seriously. They're the ones that are making these hexes and spells and black masses and things like that. And they take it very, very seriously. They know what they're doing. They know the effects of their action. Right. And we need to be the same. We need to say, well, we know the effects of your action. We are going to fight against it because I mean, our God is so all powerful and can we have the elements to deal with it, to deal with this threat.
Like that first satanic black mass that was public about 5 years ago. That doesn't mean the Satanism all of a sudden started. From what I understand, and this is what I've gotten from some of the articles I've gotten from you, so always correct me or kind of redirect me. It's been in America for many, many years, and it's been hidden, just trying to, do the damage it can. But now it's just almost bolder. Is that because Americans, maybe the whole world, but I'll focus on Americans for the moment, because we're so, here's my thoughts. We're so rich and the land of plenty and blessed that we've just lived our own little lives, and we haven't even concerned ourselves with, those people. And now it's really starting to affect us. So have you seen a progression of this based on your research? And now, because they think they can, so now they're going to start doing more. The television shows.
Right, exactly. The television shows, the blasphemies, the sacrileges. I mean, it's in the nature of evil to want to spread. And you can only spread so far when you are hidden, and so their natural desire is to spread and spread openly, and so any type of evil will want to try to mainstream itself. Yeah. Take for example the sexual revolution of the '60s. You say, well, what the promiscuity and living together and all this kind of thing. Well, it was looked down upon. There was social shame involved. There was stigma involved. Now, there's no longer involved. It's mainstream.
Everybody's doing it.
Everyone's doing it. So the same thing is involved in the whole idea of Satanism. Say, well, I may not be doing Satanism, but it's all over the place. So why, we're not? It can spread much, much more easily. So I think that's what we're seeing is this idea of trying to get it out there, trying to get people to say, oh, well, they're really not that bad, and they really are. And so. It is a tactic of spreading, and I don't think we should minimalize it. It does have its effect, and especially on young people.
It does. I think of like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, how the TV shows have gotten Sabrina.
There's a bunch of them out there, yeah.
But,
exactly.
but they were a little bit like when I was a girl. I don't know how old you are. I'm 55. You got to be right.
Right. I'm a boomer, so yeah.
Yeah. So remember, we had Bewitched years ago.
Right.
I mean, everybody loves Samantha. But now that I look back, it's like just little gentle pieces, as much as society can handle. And now you have, and then you had the Charmed, right? So it's all really sweet and nice people. And so, I mean, I watched when it was on, I think it's been off the air for about 10 years, um, what was it, where people came in? It was on TLC where it was like an extreme makeover kind of thing. Can't remember what the show was called all of a sudden. And they had a woman came on, she was a witch. And she
Hmm.
dressed in black and had the black hat. And what was it, Stacy? And how am I forgetting that show? I loved it. But they actually had to help her with a re-wardrobe. But she is a witch, called herself a witch, but you could see the kind of transformation while they were there. It's like she was becoming public, and they, as a TV show, kind of received it. Instead of saying, what the heck is wrong with this? They're like, oh, okay, if you see it that way. So this normalization
Hmm.
makes us think. So, but let's kind of jump into where your article read. So we
Hmm.
have just expressed it. It's been around for a while. It's been getting more progressive, but now it's part of and influencing these violent protests, not the
Hmm.
peaceful ones like MLK did. So can
Hmm.
you start connecting us with that? Where are they? What is their advantage? What, I mean, people are going to say it's just Black Lives Matter or it's just whatever, and those are good people, but
Hmm.
connect us even more.
Well, I mean, the left and the occult do come together quite easily because the leftist narrative is the narrative of a great oppressor against the oppressed. And it's they always work that narrative in, whether it be racial groups, financial groups, whoever. They
Feminism,
always
yeah,
have the oppressor and the oppressed, and the devil is the
oppressor.
ultimately oppressed, and God is the oppressor. So they it fits into the narrative very easily because the devil is there constantly, rebelling against God, who wants
Right.
only the good of all his creation. But the left has that same narrative, and so it does fit together. You can't. It's and it does naturally come together when you have a lot of these radicals that say, well, it's the same story. It's the same struggle, and so let's just transpose it to the social, into the on the streets, and it does happen.
Now, people watching this are going to say, "That's just your opinion." How do you
Hmm.
know? How do you know? Is there any direct information that'll show us that they're involved with these riots?
Well, there is. I mean, there is like the TikTok page that has 10 million shares that tells people how to cast spells specifically on police and helping protesters. I mean, I have seen videos of witches actually out on the street or dressed in black, and so that they are really involved in the activism. I'm not saying they're in the forefront and they're at every particular protest that takes place, but they definitely have a presence. And if you go to their websites, I haven't gone to the website lately, and I try to avoid it, but I'm sure they do support these riots or these type of things that do take place. So,
Hmm.
um, it's there are connections, and those connections are becoming ever greater. And as I mentioned, there are those books that are out that are on Amazon. Witchcraft: A Guide to Magical Activism. Just very mainstream Amazon promotions, and it's very, very, very clear. And they, of course, also the Satanists make a connection between Satanism and abortion.
Oh yeah,
That issue for them is very, very important. They
because they
consider it
need
almost
blood,
religious.
right?
It's almost they claim it is a religious right for them. So they do get involved in the abortion debate. And I mean, I've actually had Satanists email me and hex me and do all sorts of say things to me, but they say we're not giving up. It's all one struggle, and they are very 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 explicit about uniting abortion, well, the all the riots, all the problems that exist, the homosexual agenda, LGBT agenda. It's all for them. It's all one struggle.
Sure. What do they email you? What do they tell you? What are they saying? Get off our backs, or we know what you're up to, or this doesn't bother us, or what?
Well, I mean, a lot of them are very challenging. A lot of them they're all full of hatred. There's no sympathy and no quarter. I mean, it just you really are pretty shocked by it. They don't have the bit of sympathy for you. They just say, we will continue this fight. We are against you. And so, it's a very black and white situation.
Can I go a little bit off track and ask if there's any connection to them and I know you said the riots and the violent protests, but like the vandalism and the burning of the churches that we've seen? I should rephrase that some of us have seen, because the mainstream media won't even put out that something like 12 or 20 Catholic churches have been burned in the past.
Right. Yeah.
Past, I don't know, since this COVID stuff or since the George Floyd. I mean,
Oh, definitely. I think there definitely is, because there you see it's a directed hatred. I mean, there's no other reason for it. You know, the vandalism, the beheading of statues, the spray painting of statues, all the things that are taking place. This is typical of satanic activity, or at least of occult activity. But a lot of times these are anonymous things. You can't really trace them. The police really don't get that far. You know, they don't find the people. But it's definitely there. I mean, it certainly makes sense. And the church is the target, because it is
antithesis of Satan.
It's the Church of God. It's the enemy of Satan. You know, so absolutely.
So what about I'm going to take us back to something I said earlier. You're the vice president of the American, the Tradition, Family, and Property. Right. I'm like, did I get them in the right order?
Yeah, you got it. Yes.
And in that, isn't that where you have a bunch of young men and women? Because I get so many of your emails that I want to make sure but you're teaching the young men, they wear the red sashes.
Yes.
That's the TFP, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So when I see that, and I've seen some of those guys, I went to Bringing America Back to Life conference in Cleveland this year, and I met some of your young men. Yes. And so now I'm kind of getting into more of this proactive area. Is that just part of TFP, or is that what it is? I mean, what does that do? Because I'm looking at these young, stellar 20-year-old young men and older saying, no more, we are going to start fighting this stuff. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about them. What caused you or your organization to like create that group of young men? And is that more of a proactive kind of, let's do something about this?
Right. I mean, it is. The idea is that we have to be in the public square. We do have to fight against these things, and they're out there, and they're especially on the campuses and among the young people. And so we do have we do have a recruiting mechanisms for young people, especially young men, to get involved in these things. And so we will go onto campuses, and many times even Ivy League campuses, or our state universities, with issues like LGBT, which is very, very hot, or abortion, which is very, very hot. It really. And we teach people how to argue against them, and also we're surprised by the support that we get. Of students who say, "Wow, finally somebody here that reflects our positions." So we do like to get into have a certain activism involved, and the young people love it. I mean, they just love to argue.
Something to do.
They love to argue with them. If you go to a campaign where there's no arguments, they say, well, yeah, all right. But they really like to debate, and they like to get involved in these kind of things. And usually the other side doesn't have rational debates. It's really, they just yell, they scream at you, they spit at you, they do all sorts of things. But they don't have the debates. It used to be back in the 60s or 70s, you could talk and and go back and forth. But now it's much, much less so, because it's just slogans and obscenities and just really, really horrible stuff that you see out there.
Yeah, I read a book called Eloquence, and our nation was founded on, the people would come just like a concert just to listen to two opposing people debate and go, it's great use of language and thoughts. And now you're right, there is none of that. So to have these young men, I'll say men because I've seen men, I haven't seen any, men, because I do marriage, I do relationship stuff. So I know the male-female brain better than the average person. And the males are like, give me something to be chivalrous about. Let me protect, let me defend, let me fight, let me have, let me be a hero. Give me an opportunity. And whereas it's still, no one wants to be persecuted. It gives my heart just such joy to see these men willing to put themselves out there for the greater good, for the kingdom, to say.
No, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and one of the things we do have for boys is called the chivalry camps, and they really just eat them up, young
Caps
let's
or
say
camps?
camps.
Oh, with an M. Okay.
Yeah, called the chivalry summer camps, in which the young boys, and from let's say from junior high to high school, and they will learn about chivalry, and we'll talk about chivalry, and they'll have games, and it's both physical and mental and spiritual, and we will take them on a campaign. We'll take them to a Planned Parenthood. They'll protest there. They'll play the bagpipes. They love to have bagpipes, to get everybody all worked, just very excited about the thing. So it is I think these kind of things are very healthy for all of society, and to be out there and to fight against them. And we're doing something very natural, as you say, and it's something we naturally should defend ourselves against these evils that come to us.
Right, and if you don't know what the enemy looks like, I know during the Iran and Iraq wars, I just hope someone forgot what they're called, but the men, there was a lot of spiritual problems, and because I read several books on it, where their faith was questionable, like, who is my enemy? Who am I fighting? I'm killing people. What does God think? Is there a God? And so when they could articulate and see who their enemy is, they were better able to fight. So it's this fence sitting that Jesus talks about on the Bible that he can't stand. It's like, be hot or be cold, but you in the lukewarm, I want to spit you out of my mouth. And so society right now is becoming more divided, but you have to pick a side. You have to pick one side or the other. And so like having a camp, as you said, or having just this physical presence of good people praying, standing up, defending, and then you got bad people, I'll just say it that way, screaming, yelling, being vulgar.
Right.
The person who's walking down the street with their milkshake, having just hung out with family, and they see this, it causes them to start picking sides. Like, why are you doing this right here? There was one video you put out a couple months ago, and it kind of showed your young men standing out protesting. Their protest was just praying outside. They weren't, I don't even think they had megaphones or anything.
Right.
And then all of a sudden the nasty, evil pro-abortion and LGBTQ, and they got in their faces. Like you said, they spat upon them. They fought. They couldn't stand it. And I can't even remember if they hit them. I think someone might have pushed against them. But your young men were trained. But when you sat and watched, I mean, I remember my skin actually just crawling at the evil. It's like, how can you guys, and it reminded me of like Jesus when he got condemned, and then you have, these mobs of nasty, ugly people, and then the few that were standing in his defense. So
yeah, and that is very important. I mean, we have to, when we do defend life, when we defend God, when we do it in the public square, we need to be chivalrous. We need to be courteous. We don't get in people's faces.
Right.
We defend ourselves if we're attacked, but usually we try to stay away from that, because it is an opportunity for the enemy to say, look, they're beating up on people. So we would try, and by every means, we know when situations get hot, and we know when to leave and when to stay. So it's a lot of you have to really this type of activism is I think is very important, but you have to do it right. You cannot adopt their tactics, or to lower yourself to their tactics and scream at them or such obscenities. You have to be very calm and courteous and assertive.
What caused you to form that group? What do you call them? Do you call them a certain?
That is the TFP student action, is what we call it, because for the most part, they are students, and they are learning. They're learning their arguments. They're learning how to do these kind of things.
How to defend their faith.
Excuse me?
How to defend their faith.
The faith, yes, exactly. How to pray in public. Things that normally people don't do, or are scared to do, or are afraid to do. And it's just an amazing way to energize young people, because they do want to do this. It's not something you're forcing people to do. when they really love their faith, they want to show that faith, and
Yeah.
this is one way to do it. And I think it's very, very helpful, and it encourages a lot of other people when they see the videos to say, well, I could do that too.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So what made you decide to just pull them together?
Well, throughout the history of organization, we've always had young people, and we've always been out on the streets. So, when the probably the thing that is different is that we channel it into universities and places like that, and the other side has become much more vibrant and much more. It wasn't that way before. Sometimes they just ignore you, but now you can't be ignored. Everything
Right.
is polarized and politicized and weaponized.
Wow. So let's keep this stuff and kind of turn it back to our current political climate and the coming election. We started out this conversation talking about the occult and witchcraft. Is there any, I have heard, I was listening to the U.S. Grace Force today, and I know that yesterday was a crescent moon, and the witchcrafts or the witches have made a pact or some kind of covenant that every crescent moon they were going to hex President Trump and try to just destroy him. So there's a group of men and women that are praying against those hexes. So have you heard of them?
Yeah, I have. I mean, they at the time of the inauguration, I think there were 13,000 witches that did exactly that. They 13,000, of course. 13. The coven is 13. So they asking the dark powders to bind the president's action, and so yeah, I think they are very involved in it. They still are very involved in it, and it's hard to quantify the results of that, but I think it definitely it is there. It creates confusions in minds. Where the devil always works, there's confusion and chaos, and the idea is to increase it, and we are experiencing that in our country. And anything we can do to do the opposite, to pray, well, that's
what I was just going to ask you. Yeah, what can we do if we believe? I mean, just pray for our president, pray for our nation. Is there any more directed ways of prayer or things to?
Well, I mean, we're always saying, well, prayer in the public square is very, very important. And we have what we call the public square rosary rallies in October, and we've had as many as 20,000 of these separate rallies throughout the country, and where people we send them a banner and a direction book and say, well, go out there with your banner and your rosary in a public place. Don't hide in church or hide in the basement somewhere. Be out there. And every year we do have it grows. People are very like the idea, and you just get all sorts of people from all over the country in the most the most rural or the most urban places that are out there, and I think that definitely is one thing that we do, and we also direct rallies or protests or prayer protests, like for things like drag queen story hours, or now we're doing back to police rallies in front of police stations with rosaries. Yeah. And the police are they're effusive. They just can't believe it, that there would be the people out there who are praying for them, who give them a St. Michael's medal, who say, well, we're for you. It is a very good help for them, and it certainly helps the country.
Yeah, you just answered the question I was about to ask, is how do they feel about that? Because I'm hearing police are feeling attacked everywhere.
No. When you go out there and I've been out there, I've been on the streets, and with some of these police rallies, they'll come around, they'll shake your hand, they'll just be effusive because they say, well, this is what we need, and we'll have honk to support the police, and they'll see how many people honk for them, and that just blows them away, because they're given the idea that everybody hates them, but most people like them, most people want them, and it really encourages them to go ahead. So I don't know. We're doing these police rallies on September 29th. Is going to be sort of the grand finale. It's the Feast of St. Michael, and so we hope to have a couple thousand of these rallies throughout the country. So to encourage them to keep up the fight, because it's not easy for them.
How can they find out about these? What I know at the end of the show, I always do the website and the web address, but what would be the best way for people to get a hold of you or find out information about all of this?
Yeah, the websites will have that. The tfp.org is one of the websites. Returntoorder.org, which is the name of my book. AmericanEastFatima.org also.
What is that? We haven't mentioned that. Of course, I know because I'm part of it, but
Right.
can you tell our viewers what is that?
Yeah, American East Fatima is a outreach program where we visit people's homes with a statue of Our Lady of Fatima, spread the message of Our Lady of Fatima, promote the rosaries, promote rallies. It's more of a devotional part of our outreach, and it's a very good program that helps people reconnect or connect with our Blessed Mother, especially in what she said in Fatima.
What did she say at Fatima?
To repent, to
Repent.
repentance, to fast, to change their lives. I mean, it's pretty much what we need to do. I mean,
Right.
it's
Pray,
exactly what
repent,
needs to be done.
fast, turn back to my son, stop your sinful ways. His mercy,
Right.
his cup of mercy is run out.
Right.
And
It's all there, it's not rocket science. Just if you do what you said, we'll come out all right. And that's we're trying to spread that as much as possible.
Yeah, but sadly, enough of us are not. I mean, I have to admit, I only recently started praying the rosary again, and I was a little bit Protestantized for a time, trying to discover why should I ask for the Blessed Virgin's intercession, which, of course, I mean, I've never denied her or any her virginity or the stuff the church teaches, but just listening, going, yeah, why can't I go straight to Jesus, and really understanding that Jesus conferred upon her. She's not higher than Jesus. She is a human. She is not a God. But this is his mother, and his commandments say, honor thy father and mother. And so he would not break any of his own commandments. So say, I honor my mother. You can honor my mother too. And I'm going to send her to send you messages. This is my dumb blonde way of explaining it, but really saying she is what, he gave her this role. And, even at the wedding of Cana, he says, not yet my time, woman. And she could have said, oh, okay. But she went, do whatever he tells you to do. Right. So,
you really can't go wrong. I mean, it's just, I think everybody who has prayed the rosary experiences that, you have, it is an amazing prayer. It protects you. Our Lady helps you. I mean, it just so much has happened because of that, and I think it has. And the other side hates it so much. That's also a good sign. They really don't like it. So if you're praying the rosary, you're doing something you must be doing something right. Right.
So then again, if people want to contact you or find out more about these, the websites are returntoorder.org. Right?
Yeah.
American TFP.
Or just tfp.org.
tfp.org, and that'll get you in touch with the Association for the Tradition, Family, and Property.
Yes.
And that's .org, you said, right?
Yes.
Or
AmericanEastFatima.org.
Right.
That's
so these
the
are
other one.
Great organizations. I get information from them daily, which is why I wanted you on the air. So let me get a little bit personal. Who are you, and have you always been in love with God, or when can you give me a piece of your journey and your testimony? Because you're like devoting everything to getting people back to God. Did you ever have a time away or a reversion to the faith? What's your journey? What's your story?
I'm a cradle Catholic, and I come from Kansas, Kansas City, Kansas side, and pretty a baby boomer. Grew up in the 60s and 70s. Fortunately, I didn't leave the faith like a lot of people did when they went to university. But in fact, I met some people that helped me become stronger in the faith at the University of Kansas. And then I met the TFP way back then in 1977, and I joined the TFP.
You found that?
No. It's the original organization was founded in Brazil in 1960.
Wow.
By Professor Plínio Correia Oliveira, a Brazilian intellectual and thinker. And so I joined in 1977, and I haven't looked back since. So it's that there was no back and forth. I've been with the organization for 43 years. So and I've during that time developed and studied and been an activist. I've traveled. I've spent 4 years in South Africa. I've done all sorts of things, for the TFP.
Wow.
So that's been my journey.
Yeah. Do you
So I
have?
and I
Keep going.
excuse me.
No, keep
No,
going.
and I've dedicated my whole life to this. I'm not married, and so I have that opportunity to go where I need to go, and almost all members of the American TFP are that same, and it's also do the same.
Well, you make me feel better because I was just going to ask if you're married, and
Hmm.
it's good to know because you are a prolific writer. And I'm sitting here with my two wonderful daughters and my husband of 37 years and my six grandchildren, and now I'm homeschooling because of this mess.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so I do these radio shows and I've got my book out, but I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't get to write as much as I would like. And so you just made me feel better because you have fewer
Yeah.
distractions in your personal life, I would guess,
Right.
because of
No,
that.
I have plenty of time to devote to that and silence, and I really I treasure that. But things can get pretty hectic as well, so I
Of
just
course.
plow away at it. That's what you have to do if you're
But I
going
praise
to.
God, He has men like you that are willing to just do the
Mhm.
good work, do what needs to be done. And,
Mhm.
just someone has to do it, so I'm going to do it. And so I know you said you get the emails, but let me ask you, how often do you get persecuted for what you do?
Personally, or just as an organization?
I mean, I get people attacking me on
Mhm.
Facebook and stuff all the time, saying I hate you religious zealots and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, no.
And I
Well,
at first it
that
was
comes
hard,
with
but now I'm
that comes with it. It's pretty much there, and we do that. I mean, the Father Martins of the world don't like us, and the liberation theologians don't like us, and so we will get just all sorts of. They'll repeat the same things over and over. You do this, you do that. They're really, but they're not very original. So after a
yeah.
while, it wears out. But
That's what I always say
we
about Satan.
constantly do get that kind of attacks, and
Yeah.
you just deal with it.
Your skin does get hardened when you're like, oh, you're right. Satan
Yeah,
is not creative. Only God is creative. And
right. Yeah,
Satan just
exactly. I mean,
recycles the same lies over and over and
absolutely.
over.
Yeah.
And you start watching it. You're like, I've heard that before. And
Right. Yeah.
according to
Can't
everybody
you
saying,
come up with something original? At
right?
least.
No, you can't. That's why you're Satan and God's God. So take that, right?
Right. Exactly. God is the creator. He creates. He's constantly ever ancient and ever new. As Saint Augustine says. So that's what we
Yeah.
are. Mm.
Well, let me ask you this question. It's not a question, it's a statement. It's a fill in the blank. Okay, so
All right.
finish this sentence. When I die, I will know that I have made a difference if.
Hmm. That's an interesting. Um. Hmm.
Take your time.
Yes. Well, I mean, if well, I think if I would like to say if the world has somehow changed as a result of that, if I could, somehow sense that the world has changed. My tendency is not to say I don't want to change a single life or just this little situation or that. I would prefer to have something, an impact upon all society
Hmm.
and our American society, and to see our country in some way recover. I would not be. I would feel that it would not be so if we were to go into communism and I die. Well, I'm sure my life would have its effect, but I would feel very fulfilled if I was some way have prevented that and worked toward, saving our country.
Yeah, well, I have a belief that when we do die, that God will show us in our judgment, because we
Mhm.
talk about, I don't know if you've heard, but Christine Watkins' new book, The Warning, and the mini judgment that we're the illumination of conscience. But we're each going to have our judgment where God is going to show us all of our sins and how they
Mhm.
impacted other people. But He will
Yes.
also show us the fruit and how every good deed we did impacted. So it is my belief that God will say, John, good job,
Mhm.
well done, my good and faithful servant. And I do believe he'll show you actual numbers of people that came to him because of you or who turned their hearts back towards you. So I think you've touched a lot, or God through you. But
Right. Yeah.
I'm really grateful that you are so obedient and you do this stuff. Because who wants to talk about witchcraft and the occult? I mean, wouldn't
Right.
you rather talk about the football game that's coming on TV, right? But
Right. Right.
you have to. Someone's got to talk about this. May as
Mhm.
well be John Horvat II.
Well, now there are no football games, so it makes maybe it makes it a little easier.
Don't
People
you
are
see a little
wondering.
bit good in that, though? I am a sports, I don't want to say I'm a sports junkie. I am a football and baseball. I love and so when baseball didn't start right away, I found I had more time to really go into what was important when you shed off what wasn't important. So all the stuff that I'm doing got availed me to doing the YouTube show. I had been thinking
Mhm.
about it for years, and now I'm actually able to do it and go, what is important?
Mhm.
And as much as I love baseball, okay, if I don't have baseball, I got God, so
Right. Right.
it
No,
really,
I mean there is a silver lining to all this because when we suffer, we think, we start to reflect, and we go back to the sources of things, and that means family, that means God, that means church, all those
yeah,
things we start thinking about, and wisdom is the consideration of all things according to their source, according to their origins, and so we gather wisdom. We start to gather wisdom because we look back to where it all comes from.
which is God, the source of all.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. All right, well, let me ask you one last question then. Name one thing, again, it's not a question. Name one thing you'd have our viewers do differently as a result of something they heard today.
Well, no, I would hope then that they would take more seriously the idea of the occult. I mean, that would be definitely, I think, would be a major victory because so often we don't take it seriously, and the culture says it's just a folkloric thing. It's something that some people believe in, others don't. Um, there is evil out there, and that evil is threatening, and it does not rest. And so, if we have an idea of that, if you get an idea of that just from this conversation, I think it will definitely be helpful for your viewers, and for the country too, because we need to think in those terms. And I think it's easier to think in those terms now than it was in the past.
Yeah, I went to Africa, and as you said, you spent some time in South Africa, and they are
Hmm.
very adept. Now, people are going to say, oh, well, that's, in Africa, they're a third world country. And they kind of disparage them as if they're stupid people or they don't know what they're talking
Hmm.
about. But they're actually very in tune to the spiritual because they don't have all the trappings of modern society there. And
Hmm.
I saw people came to me regularly and told me about the stories of witchcraft that they've dealt with
Oh yeah, oh, it's
curses.
very real there. If you don't believe it here, go there and you'll see. I mean, you'll see it in the streets. You see it, all the different witch doctors and sangomas
Oh,
and all these kind of things. They believe it. You'll hear a lot of stories. So, but at the same time, you see that they are very religious, and
so religious. Thank
it's
God.
amazing. They love to sing. They love to. It just I enjoyed immensely being there
Me
to see that,
too.
and so that fight is very clear to them. It's not as clear to us.
Yeah. So if people want to study this and really see, are these guys full of, are these two whack jobs? Where would you have them start their reading? Going to one of the websites that we talked about, or that book you meant? No, you don't want to read the book you mentioned, but is there, because
Yeah, you don't
that's,
really want to go into their witchcraft
yeah.
stuff.
So is there
That is,
anything that they can look at to kind of educate themselves, or your website's a really good starting place, I know.
yeah, the website has different articles about it. You can Google the website and find out more. There's a lot of over time there. I've written a lot of stuff about it, and right. I mean, I don't recommend going deeply into it because deeply into the cult never
Right.
really ends up good. Just know that it exists, know that it is a threat, know that it is evil, and and on your part, have a have a very excuse me, have a very strong sacramental life, very strong spiritual life, and prayer life, and that is the best protection that you can have when you're dealing with the devil and dealing with evil. Um, and then you have the elements to deal with the problem.
That's what Jesse Romero said yesterday. He said,
Oh,
cover yourself with the sacraments.
mm,
Get the Eucharist as often as you can. Pray
absolutely, yeah.
constantly. Have your sacramentals, your medals, your You know, I have my holy water here, just whatever you can to remind yourself a lot of times that you're a daughter or a son of the Most High God, and God will protect you. But, you know, yes, stay covered under the mantle, you know.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is and the rosary, as you said, will
Yeah.
definitely is a protection and a weapon in this fight.
Yes, it's the spiritual sword, as Father Don Calloway calls it. It's the
That's for sure. I
sword.
mean, it's always been there. Whenever there's a fight, it's right in the middle of it. You know.
It is. It is. So if anybody wants to find you again, you guys go to my website, breakfastwithbacon.com. Some of you are watching this live from my website, and you'll see with this show, you can click on the link. It's already connected to returntoorder.org. So that'll be a starting point. So then you can get a hold of, I always want to call you Dr. Horvat because you have so much education. You should be the doctor. And
No.
but in either case, yes, God's granted you with great wisdom, great researching abilities, and you're not afraid to put it out there. So go to the returntoorder.org.
TFP.org.
I keep wanting to say American TFP. So the website's just tfp.org. And the third one,
AmericanEatsFatima.org.
You can do that. But if you forget all that, go to my website, breakfastwithbacon.com, because some of you are watching this on YouTube. So there's a lot of great stuff on my website. You can see this radio show. You can see all the other ones God has blessed me with. You can also get information on the book I've written, The Super Couple, A Formula for Extreme Happiness.
A very good book, I must have. I've read it. I like it very much.
That's right. You did read it. Thank you. But yeah, we want to save marriages. It's all pointing back to God. God said that I came that you might have life and have it abundantly. He meant your marriage as well. If your marriage is just mediocre, you know, you need to realize that it could be so much greater. And all these things we're talking about today, the rosary and praying and getting to know God, that all ties together. My marriage has never been better. It's just been, but my husband and I pray together. We pray the rosary together at the chaplet. We go to mass together. And it was since we've been doing those things that our marriage just instantly just started taking off. Because if your hearts are both turned towards God and you're both facing this, if here's God and we're both facing this way, it can't help but pull you closer together. And that's what I try to tell my couples. So I guess like us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all those other social media. Are you all over the place? Should they like you in social media as well, John?
I'm really not into it. You can go to the Twitter page, though. It's Return to Order.
Twitter.
That's pretty much my, that's what I limit myself to. There are other people who do certain things for me, but I don't really know too much about it.
Well, that's okay. That's why I wanted to put it out there. But I have to thank you. I love the stuff that you give me. You give me food for thought. You constantly, you challenge me. And so I just want to thank you. I want to ask God to put a prayer covering over you because of the work that you're doing. Seriously, you know, to just people who are in the occult and witchcraft, they want to hurt you. They want to hex you. And, you know, so I pray the Lord just keeps St. Michael, the Archangel, and all the rest of them covering you and your home and your family.
Thank you.
And so, but I think that's all that we need to talk about today. Anything else you wanted to throw in?
No, I'm fine. I'm really happy. It's as you say, it was an organic process, and I think we're reaching the end of it.
We are. It's so funny. I told John before we went on there, it's like, I start out here, but I could go there, be ready. And so some people are like, oh, thank God I'm a praying person, because I have some guests that are so linear that they're like, no, I have to have all my answers written out. So
right.
trying to work with that. I hope you're not one of those, and if you were, you did quite well.
No, it works out. No problem at all.
All right, well, let's take us off the air. I want to thank you for watching this show. Please always find time to watch us. And you can also listen to me if you're in the Virginia, North Carolina area on WKQA radio, AM 1110. But all those shows are also uploaded to my Breakfast with Bacon page. So just go to breakfastwithbacon.com and you'll find everything you need. And also hire me to come do some speaking for your group, your church, your organization. And same with John, because he's an international speaker as well. So I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. You've been watching Breakfast with Bacon, and I want to remind you always to live your life sunny side up.